Hare Krishna. So today we continue our discussion on the Shikshashtakam. In the last session, we discussed the first three aspects, how the mind is like a mirror that reflects the reality of who we are when we become purified. Cheto darpana marjanam, bhavamahadava nirvapanam. How thereafter, once we have a clear perception of who we are, then we become free from the miseries of material existence. And we discussed how bhakti frees us at different levels. And third, we discussed also. So actually in these two phases, material existence ends. After that, Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. Now this we discussed partially. I'll just add a couple of points in that. Just as a lotus blossoms when there is sunlight, there are special lotuses like a Kairava which blossoms when there is moonlight. So what does the blossoming of the lotus refer to? The lotus is a metaphor for our consciousness. That just as a lotus blossoms, similarly our consciousness blossoms when it comes in the presence of Krishna. When just as a lotus is bathed with moonlight, the lotus blossoms. Similarly, our consciousness blossoms when it is bathed in the presence of Krishna. And that presence of Krishna is invoked by the chanting of the holy names. So now, what do we mean by the blossoming of our consciousness? Essentially, what we are conscious of determines how we seek pleasure. Anandmayo abhyasat. All of us are pleasure-seeking creatures. Now, for the animals, or let's go down to the plants. For them, their consciousness is so limited that a grass, practically, the only purpose of its existence is to exist and to grow in one direction. It can't move about much. It can't do any of the other things. The grass, every blade of grass is a soul just like us. But its consciousness is so constricted that simply existence and one-dimensional growth. That's all that it can conceive of. So that's how the consciousness is very restricted. Now when the soul transmigrates to the animal species, the animals can do more things. They can walk around, they can move, they can have their own territory sort of. They can do many things. So basically, their conception of the reality around them and how they can seek happiness in that reality, that has broadened for them. Now, this is, so first in the plants there is the Sankuchit Chetana. There is the completely constricted consciousness. There is the Avruta Chetana. Avruta is completely covered. Then Sankuchit is in the animals. And then when you come to the human species, there is Mukulit Chetana. Mukulit means it is just body. So what is special? Now animals will seek pleasure primarily through eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Actually, even the plants seek through this pleasure. But for the plants, what is the pleasure of mating for a plant? Actually, there is practically no pleasure. Just the reproductive sperms or seeds come out of the androecium, they go to gynoecium, and some birds, butterflies may carry them, some birds may carry them with cross-pollination. So actually there is not much pleasure also in that. So what to speak of spiritual happiness, even material happiness becomes inaccessible or less accessible when the consciousness is very constricted. Now animals, they can experience eating, sleeping, mating, defending to a substantially greater extent than plants. In human form also we can experience the pleasure of eating, sleeping, mating, defending. But we can experience higher pleasures also. Ultimately, this higher pleasure culminates in the pleasure of devotion. But if we consider this to be the level of eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and this to be the level of devotion, we will see humans have many other activities which animals don't have. Many people object Now how can you say only these activities differentiate between humans and animals? Because we may say that humans have language, humans write books, humans develop science, humans build civilizations. So we do a wide variety of activities which seem to be not eating, sleeping, waiting, defending. That is true. But we have to look beyond the form to the purpose. Okay, we have developed language, but what are we doing with the language? We have developed technology, but what are we doing with the technology? Most of the technology is used for consumer industry products, and consumer industry products are basically products for eating, sleeping, mating. And much of the technology is used for warfare, which is defending. So the point is, yes, there is a difference between animal activities and the gamut of activities that human beings do. So humans in form do many activities apart from the animals. But those activities ultimately get directed towards the animal purposes. But all those activities can be directed towards spiritual purposes. So we have language, we use the language to glorify Krishna. We have technology, we use the technology to share Krishna's glories. And that is the spirit of the Bhagavatam. Idam hi pumsa tapasa shrutasya va svishtasya suktasya je buddhi dattayo avichyutartha kavibhi niropito yad uttama shloka gunanuvarnanam. That whatever abilities we have, whatever fields of research or knowledge or activity we develop, all of them should be used for uttama shloka gunanuvarnanam, for glorifying the Supreme Lord. So now, what has this got to do with chanting and the expansion of consciousness through chanting? When we expose our consciousness to the holy name, our consciousness expands in the sense that we can perceive pleasure, perceive satisfaction in greater number of things. In our conceptions or definitions of happiness don't remain limited just to eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So now for example, anybody can participate in kirtan, anybody can hear Krishna Katha, but how many people want to do it? They don't want to do it because they don't get any taste in it. They don't get any taste in it because their consciousness is not developed enough. So now we may also face this problem. There are so many devotional activities, but we don't feel interested, we don't feel attracted to the devotional activities. Why? Because our consciousness is not yet developed. Now this idea of a development of consciousness, I'll give an example to illustrate this. Suppose we take a work of art. Sometimes some people pay millions of dollars to purchase one artistic masterpiece. Now for others, it may just be some pattern of paint on a canvas. Why is this person paying so much? Because this person, this connoisseur of art, has got the artistic sensibility developed. And that's why the connoisseur can appreciate the value. So similarly, when our spiritual sensibility gets developed, then we can appreciate the value of devotional activities and we can relish them more and more. So, coming back to the lotus metaphor, as the lotus becomes bigger and bigger, then it becomes more and more beautiful and it becomes greater in size also. And all this blossoming is happening because of the one factor is the moonlight. Similarly, as our consciousness expands by contact with Krishna, then we can experience higher and higher forms of happiness. We can relish higher forms of happiness more. So, first time we may come to a temple and we may look at the deities, okay, they look beautiful. But maybe if we've been practicing bhakti for 10 years, 15 years, and then we come to the temple, and then taking darshan of the deity is an entirely different experience. Because we have developed a relationship. We have in one sense become devotional connoisseurs. So, if we are experiencing a lack of taste in devotional activities, that means our consciousness has not yet expanded. But if we keep exposing ourselves to the holy name, then the consciousness will blossom more and more and more. So there is Vikasit Chetana, then there is Purna Vikasit Chetana. So Vikasit Chetana, so Mukulit is where we have the potential for understanding spirituality and relishing spiritual happiness. But we have not tapped that potential. Vikasit is the fourth stage where we start relishing spiritual activities, but not constantly. Sometimes, okay, I like them, sometimes it's too much, it's too boring. But then when there is Purna Vikasit, then that time we have developed a strong attachment to Krishna, and then there is constant happiness, Sthai Bhav. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu refers to it. So this is the journey on which the holy name will take us. So now what does the lotus have to do to blossom? It just has to stay in the presence of the moonlight. So like that, we just need to stay in the presence of the holy name. Then our consciousness will blossom. Now of course, staying in the presence of the holy name doesn't mean just mechanical chanting. When the holy name is manifesting, we have to be present, we have to be attentive. Otherwise we are not actually in the presence of the holy name. But by this, our consciousness will blossom, and we will relish more and more, not just devotional activities, but even while we are in the world, we will see its connection with Krishna, and thereby our involvement in the world will also become more meaningful, more purposeful. Yes, why am I working in this world? It's not just to earn a living. It's not just to get fame and position in society. It's actually to develop my relationship with Krishna. It's actually to serve Krishna. It is to share Krishna's compassion and message with the world. So in this way, the blossoming of consciousness makes not just our devotional life richer, it makes our entire life richer. Now, after that, Vidya Vadhu Jivanam. So Jivanam is life. Vidya is knowledge. Vadhu is the bride. So what is being referred to over here? It is the life of the bride of knowledge. So actually, it's described that Vidya is a goddess. Vidya Devi, often referred to Saraswati. So now, it's described that when that Krishna is the groom of all goddesses ultimately. So when Krishna manifests, the knowledge also automatically manifests. So just as a chaste wife is there with the husband, similarly, when we practice the chanting of the holy names, Krishna manifests in the heart, and by that the knowledge also manifests. Vidya Devi also manifests, because she is the Vadhu of the Lord who manifests as the holy name. But the important point is Jivanam, life of transcendental knowledge. This is a very important point, that often knowledge, there is a difference between, there are these three margas. There is the karma marga, there is the jnana marga, and there is the bhakti marga. So sometimes people simply think that karma marga is the mark of action, and jnana marga is the intellectual mark, and bhakti marga is the path of devotion. It's not so simple. So karma marga is primarily the path by which one tries to enjoy this world. One tries to find more and more ways to enjoy this world. And there are many karma kanda rituals by which one tries to enjoy this world. Jnana marga is the mind going to the other extreme. The mind thinks, oh, this world is not a place of enjoyment, it's a place of misery, and I have to disentangle myself from it. So jnana involves rejection of the world. And that knowledge which does not bring detachment from the world, in the philosophical context, that is not called jnana. It is another kind of knowledge, but in this philosophical context it is not referred to jnana. So therefore, although science has led to a lot of advancement of knowledge, science is a part of karma. It is not a part of jnana. Why? Because science is used primarily to enjoy the world better. How many scientists, by their scientific study, have actually become detached from the world? Now, practically no one. So, jnana is meant for vairagya. If the jnana produces not vairagya, but raga, more attachment to the enjoyment of this world, then that jnana is just a subset of karma. It is not exactly jnana in the philosophical sense of the word. So, now, the karmis romanticize the world. They think, oh, this world is such a place of enjoyment. We just want to enjoy. Just make some arrangements, we will enjoy the world. The jnanis demonize the world. Say, oh, this world is a place of entanglement, it's a world of illusion. Stay away from this world. The third is bhakta. Bhaktas utilize the world. We don't romanticize. We don't think this world is a place of misery, a place of joy. We don't demonize the world. We don't think this is a world a place of misery. Our focus is on utilizing. See, how can I use this world in Krishna's service? So now, why am I talking about this? We are talking about Vidya Vadhu Jeevanam. So, Vidya normally when knowledge manifests, especially knowledge of the Jnanis, that knowledge is often life negating. Life negating means, this world, why are you working? Everything is temporary. You will build a business empire, it will all be lost. So in one sense, when the person acquires knowledge, person feels, what is the need to do anything? So in that sense, that knowledge is life negating. But the knowledge of devotion is life affirming. And that's why this knowledge, this bhakti, by the holy name, what happens? Vidya comes as the bride, but she becomes enlivened. So once we acquire the knowledge of devotion, it is not that the devotee becomes simply inactive and renounced. A devotee becomes more active, but with a higher purpose. For the purpose of serving Krishna, for the purpose of sharing Krishna's message. And that's why this knowledge is Jeevanam. The bride, otherwise people who have knowledge, their life actually becomes very inactive because they think all activity will lead to bondage. And in that sense, their knowledge is life negating or life rejecting. But the knowledge of devotion, which manifests by mantra meditation, that is life affirming. Knowledge becomes enlivened. Jnanis often become hard-hearted because their jnana actually makes them think that all emotions are illusion. And all emotions are illusion, therefore there is no need for me to have any emotions. In fact, the more emotions I have, the more I will become entangled. But for devotees, the emotions, we do not eradicate the emotions, we elevate the emotions. We direct the emotions towards Krishna. So, Vidya Vadhu Jeevanam. Knowledge becomes enlivened when there is devotion. Now, Anandambudhi Vardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam. There are 2 points over here. Anand Ambudhi Vardhanam. So, Ananda is happiness. Ambudhi is the ocean. Ambu is water. Ambuddha is something which a large quantity of water is present. So, ocean of happiness, Vardhanam, expands. So, when the holy name is served attentively, when the Sankirtan is done nicely, then it causes the ocean of happiness to expand. What does this refer to? Normally, the ocean metaphor is used in the scripture to refer to the place of entanglement. Bhava Sagara. That the ocean of material existence, wherein we are entangled. And in this way, there are big stormy waves which toss us up and down, and we struggle and struggle and struggle, and ultimately we sink. Till we get another body, again we surface, and again we keep struggling. So Bhavasagar is a place of suffering. And now, people who come out of this Bhavasagar, there is the coast of immortality. That coast of immortality is the Brahman realization. It's a person who comes out of the ocean, comes to the coast, comes to the land. But the scriptures explain that that is not the topmost realization, it is the transitional realization. So in 18.54, Krishna says that after one comes to Brahman level, then one goes to Bhakti. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kamshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. So after one comes to the Brahman platform, then one gets para bhakti, pure devotion. So the metaphor now, there is an ocean in which we are trapped, and we want to come out of this ocean and come to the land, come to the coast. That coast is immortality. That is realization that I am not the body, I am the soul. I do not have to be attached to these material things. Actually, what causes agitation is not just being in the ocean, but being attached to worldly things. If I am not, last time I had given the example of watching a movie. Now, if whatever is happening in the movie, I am not attached to watching the movie, then the hero may get beaten up or whatever may happen, I will not be affected. So similarly, Actually, what causes our agitation in this Bhavasagar is our attachments. The more we are attached to things, the more we will go up and down in the waves of happiness and distress come. So when we become detached, na shochati, na kamshati. So when we become detached, we come to the Brahman level. Understand, I am not the body. These things will not affect us so much. But then, that is only negation of the negative. Yes, material desires are negative. They cause entanglement. We have to give them up. If you imagine a y-axis, so there is a negative part of the y-axis. That is material things. So the Brahman is the zero level. But beyond that, there is a positive axis. That positive axis is spiritual desires. It's devotional activities. So beyond the coast of immortality is the ocean of devotion. And the purpose of life is not just to stay safe on the coast of immortality. The purpose of life, the ultimate perfection of life, is to dive into the ocean of devotion and delight in that eternally. So now, technically, if Prabhupada translated Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as the nectar of devotion, it's an apt translation. In the sense it's short, it's brief, it's catchy. But then if you look at the Sanskrit, it's Bhakti Rasa Amrit Sindhu. So actually there are four words in it. There is Bhakti, that is devotion. Rasa is mellow, Prabhupada translates. Actually Rasa has no exact translation in English. But the Amrita is nectar. And Sindhu is ocean. So actually the literal translation would be the nectarian ocean of devotional mellows. Or the nectarian ocean of the mellows of devotion. It's a bulky translation, clunky. So Prabhupada made it short, nectar of devotion. The point why I am talking about this is the concept of ocean is there within devotion also. So our purpose is what? To dive into the ocean of devotion and to delight eternally in that ocean. So now what exactly is this ocean of devotion? Kulashekar Maharaj in his Mukundamala Stotra says that actually this is the glories of the Supreme Lord. They are oceanic. And he says, Hari Sarasi Vigaya Piya Tejo Jalaugam. He says, what I will do? Hari Sarasi. That Lord Hari, he is like I've been wandering in the desert and now I just come to the lake. I will dive deep into the lake and I will drink from that lake to my heart's content. So in this ocean, there are the glories of the Supreme Lord. And the more we drink the glories, the more the life becomes relishable. In fact, Prahlad Maharaj says that Twadvirya Gayan Mahamrita Magna Chittaha. He says, my dear Lord, I am not even worried about how to go out of material existence. Why? Because I don't feel material existence. Because I am absorbed in your glories. So, this is what happens when we start relishing Krishna's glories. And now what is the point of this verse? That Anand Ambudhi Vardhanam. The ocean of happiness expands. Now what does it mean? Now what is the ocean? The ocean is the ocean of Krishna's glories. It's the ocean of devotion. But what is specifically in devotion? The ocean of Krishna's glories. And then to the extent we have devotion, to that extent we will relish that ocean. Now if I don't have devotion, I hear Krishna's glories, so what's that got to do with me? I may think, but the more I have devotion, the more I hear Krishna's glories, the more I relish it. So what happens by the holy name? The holy name helps us, it increases our devotion to Krishna. And that's how we start relishing this ocean. But significantly, what happens is, we not only get connected with this ocean of devotion, but the holy name, it is said, causes the ocean to expand. That means, the more we chant the holy names, the more we realize Krishna's glories everywhere. We realize Krishna's glories are not finite. That for a devotee, everywhere a devotee can see within it Krishna's glories. Now when we look at the beauty of nature, we can see, oh, how magnificent this mountain is, how magnificent, beautiful this flower is, how beautiful this scenery is. Ultimately, it is made by Krishna. And that way, we can appreciate Krishna's glories more. And this is not just limited to beautiful scenes in nature. No, even when we see something technologically astonishing, the uninformed vision would be to think that, oh, just see how much man has advanced. We humans have made this technology. Yes, we humans have done something, but whatever we have done, that we have been able to do because there are pre-existing laws and mechanisms existing in nature. Now, we may have a cell phone by which we can communicate with anybody in any part of the world. But the cell phone works because silicon naturally has a semiconductor effect. Because the atmosphere naturally has an ionosphere. And that's how, because sound naturally has sound is a part of the electromagnetic spectrum. So because silicon can transmit electromagnetic waves, because ionosphere can broadcast the electromagnetic waves, because there exists the mechanism to convert, say, audio energy into electromagnetic energy. Because of all these pre-existing mechanisms, only this technology is working. And these pre-existing mechanisms are not created by man. They are tapped by man. What is the difference between creating and tapping? Now, if there is a farmer, if there is a tribal who doesn't know anything about agriculture, and the tribal comes to a farmer, and this farmer has got an orchard of mango trees, and then he observes how this farmer is doing. He says, oh, you take this mango seed, you take something, you put it under the ground, and then you get a beautiful tree, and then there are so many mangoes for you to eat right next to your house. You made such wonderful mangoes. Now the farmer did not make the mangoes. The farmer did not create the seeds. The farmer did not create the mechanism by which the seeds would grow into mangoes, into trees and then give mangoes. The farmer simply tapped. The seeds were already there. The farmer simply tapped, made the arrangements by which you could tap the transformation of the seeds into mangoes. So the farmer can be given credit, but the credit is not for creation, it is simply for utilization. Similarly, even when a devotee sees astonishing technological gadgets, a devotee sees therein also ultimately the glory of Krishna. Because it is Krishna who has endowed nature with so many amazing features that science and technology can tap. So the point is that Anandambudhi Vardhanam. The more we chant the holy names, the more our access to the ocean of Krishna's glories increases, and more our realization that Krishna's glories are everywhere, that also increases. And that way, what happens? Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam. Pratipadam, at every moment there is Purna Amrita Aswadanam, when relishes complete nectar. So there are two words over here which are significant: Pratipadam and Purna Amrita. So what is the significance of Purna Amrita? Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita from 18.37 to 39 talks about the three different kinds of happiness: happiness in goodness, happiness in passion, and happiness in ignorance. And he says, what is the nature of happiness in goodness? Yattadagre vishamiva pariname amritopamam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. So he says, it is initially like poison. Yattadagre vishamiva pariname amritopamam. But eventually the result will be nectar. Tat sukham satvikam proktam. That is happiness in the mode of goodness. Atma buddhi prasadajam. And this will increase one's spiritual intelligence. So now the happiness of bhakti is transcendental. There are three modes. There is ignorance, there is passion, there is goodness, and above that there is transcendence. Bhakti is transcendental. But as long as we are not transcendental, we cannot experience transcendental happiness fully. So our experience of transcendental happiness often reflects the nature of happiness and goodness. That means when I chant the holy names, that activity is transcendental. But for me, often my experience will be as if poison in the beginning and nectar in the end. We find it in chanting. Sometimes our mind wanders so much, I just don't feel like chanting. But somehow if we absorb ourselves and keep chanting, trying to absorb ourselves, Then gradually what happens? By that continuous contact with the holy name, then see, why are we not able to relish the holy name when we chant? Because our consciousness is caught in the lower modes, passion or ignorance. And when our consciousness is at that level, we cannot connect with Krishna very effectively. But if we just keep connecting with Krishna, keep exposing ourselves to the holy name, then that contact with the holy name starts elevating our consciousness towards goodness and then more towards transcendence. And then slowly we start relishing the holy name. Or sometimes, now we have this Damodara Ashtakam. We come and maybe it's very sweet singing going on, we like it. But then you look at some devotee, some with closed eyes, completely absorbed. Hey, what is this devotee relishing? I don't relish anything like that. But then I also close my eyes and I also start absorbing myself and trying to enter into the mood, trying to absorb myself in all the words, meditate on the words. And then slowly, initially I'll resist, the mind will resist. No, think of this, look at this, look at that, so many things. But if we force ourselves to absorb, force ourselves to focus, then gradually we will also start relishing the absorption. So, the point I am making is, for us, often our experience of devotion is like poison in the beginning, nectar in the end. And often we get so discouraged by the poison that we don't come to the nectar only. What happens is, hey, there is no taste over it, give it up only. But if we keep applying ourselves, then we will come to the nectar at the end. But this verse is saying that once we expose ourselves to the holy name regularly, then there will be no poison in the beginning, nectar in the end, there will be Purnamrita. So for an advanced devotee, there is no effect of the modes of passion and ignorance. And that's why there is Purnamrita. And we will also come to that level of Purnamrita by progressive purification. And there is Purnamrita means complete nectar. And it's not just complete nectar, it is Pratipadam. That means at every step. So there is complete nectar and there is constant nectar. So complete means there is no poison in it. Constant means it's not that today I experience something nice in devotion, tomorrow I don't experience nice. That's our experience, right? Why? That's because our consciousness is not steadily attached to Krishna. So it's like a sine wave. Sometimes we feel very good in devotion, sometimes we feel, what am I doing over here? So a sine wave is there. But still, what is happening is if we keep practicing bhakti, our consciousness will get elevated more and more. So the sine wave is like this, big crests and big troughs. Now some devotees, when they are new, they just dance in kirtan and they feel, hey, I've come to the spiritual world now. They start feeling your temple is like the spiritual world. But then 2-3 days later they come and, why did I come to the temple? There's a cricket match going on. I should be watching the cricket match. Just feel that the mind just goes to the trough, goes down so much, you feel it entirely pointless. But as we keep practicing bhakti, what will happen is, the magnitude of the crests and troughs will decrease. So instead of being a huge crest and a huge trough, become little up, little down, little up, little down. And gradually, this little up, little down will be moving upwards, upwards, upwards. So our attraction to Krishna will be increasing steadily. And eventually we will also come to the level of Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam. So that is the stage of pure devotion where a devotee constantly and completely relishes the nectar of devotion. And then Sarva Atma Snapanam. Snapanam means to wash, to cleanse, to purify. Atma, generally we use it to refer to the soul. But the word Atma refers generically to one's self-conception. Now what I think of what I think myself to be, that is Atma. That's why there is the concept of Deha Atma Buddhi. Deha Atma Buddhi means I think the Deha to be Atma. I think that I am the body. Or Krishna also uses in the 2.42-43, he says that Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravidantya vipaschita vedavadratah partha nanyadastiti vadina kamatmanah swargapara. Kam atmanah. So it is as if Krishna is talking about materialistic people who want only sense gratification. He uses the word kamatmanah. That means he says it is for them, Kam is their Atma. They think the essence of my being is to fulfill my material desires. So Atma generically refers to our self-conception. What I think is my essence. Actually my essence is, I am a soul. But different people may have different conceptions of what their essence is. Some people may think, oh, my bank balance is my essence. And that's why if my bank becomes bankrupt, then people sometimes commit suicide also. What am I living for? I don't have any money. Some people may think that, oh, my cricket team, I am a cricket fan, that's my essence. And that's why tragically, sometimes when a cricket team loses some very important match, then some cricket fans commit suicide also. They say, it happens sometimes. So that's tragically. Why? Because their Atma is invested in that particular activity. And when that particular activity goes wrong, they feel, what is the point of living? So, Sarva Atma Snapanam. So, actually, that's why there is this word plural. Now, Atma, there is only one. So, why should there be Sarva Atma Snapanam? All souls purifying. What it means is, Sarva Atma Snapanam, that all our conceptions of the self become purified. We don't reject our lower conceptions, they become purified. This is an important point to understand, that sometimes we say that I am not the body, I am the soul. Now this is true, but I cannot wish away my body existence. It's not that today I understand I am not the body and the soul, and tomorrow I don't have any body anymore. I have to live in my body at least for one lifetime. So we can't wish away our material existence, we have to work our way through it. And working our way means we have to accept our present bodily identity and dovetail it in Krishna's service. We'll see this now in the Bhagavad Gita. In 2.13, Krishna says that you are not the body. Dehi nosminitha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara. Since the body is changing, inside there is something that is unchanging, that is the real you, that is the Atma. So after telling Arjuna that you are not the body, immediately in the next verse, Krishna refers to Arjuna by his bodily connections. Matra sparshastu kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Shitoshna sukha dukkhada agamapaino nityastam stitikshasva Bharata, O descendant of the Bharata dynasty. Now if just now Krishna has told Arjuna you are not the body, then why is he referring to him in connection with the body? We may say, oh, Kunti is a pure devotee and that's why he is referring. Okay, but then Bharata, it's not that everybody in the Bharata dynasty was a pure devotee. So Krishna is clearly referring to Arjuna by his bodily designations. And in fact there are over 25 different names, all of them connected with the body. One of the names is Purusha Vyagra, O lion among men. So, Dehinam Deha Bhritamvara, O best among the embodied. So why is Krishna, after rejecting the bodily identification, again reinforcing it by referring to names connected with the body? The point here is that often there is a sense of honor associated with our connections. Now, if I think that, oh, I am the son of Kunti, if Arjuna thinks, then Kunti is such a great lady, I should behave in a worthy way. I am a descendant of the Bharata dynasty. Therefore, I should act like a respectable member of the dynasty. So the point is, we don't reject our bodily designations, we redirect our bodily designations so that they inspire us to perform bhakti. That's what Prabhupada would also do. Now, when his American disciples came to India and they were going to organize a big Hare Krishna festival in India, Prabhupada told them, what is the use of you being Americans if you don't do something wonderful? Now, Prabhupada already told them we are not Americans. Why is he reinforcing their identity? Because that is a functional identity that we have. We can't reject it. But then we should utilize it in Krishna's service. So yes, I am American, I have some proud pride of being American, and let me do wonderful things for Krishna. So similarly, Prabhupada would do that for Indians also. You say, people all over the world are studying the Bhagavad Gita, and just see, Prabhupada knew how to sort of pinch people's ego and make them practice bhakti also. We will say that, see, Bhagavad Gita is a book from India, but instead of Indians teaching Bhagavad Gita to the world, people from the rest of the world are coming to India to teach Bhagavad Gita to Indians. So now, Bhagavad Gita is not a book of India. There is no reference to India in the Bhagavad Gita. It's a transcendental book. But what is Prabhupada doing? He is inciting people to take up the study of the Bhagavad Gita and teaching of Bhagavad Gita. So similarly, the point here is Sarva Atma Snapanam. Whatever conceptions of the self that we have, they will all become purified. So if I think I am a doctor, Yes, I can't just say that I'm not a doctor. Functionally, I'm a doctor, but I become a doctor in the service of Krishna. If I am a woman, I cannot say that I am not a woman. I am a woman in this body. Then I use that femininity and all the feminine attributes for the service of Krishna. If I am in whatever position I am, all those will become purified. So we don't reject our various layers of identification. They become purified and utilized in Krishna's service. And ultimately, Bhakti also purifies. Aham Brahmasmi. I think I am spirit, but I understand I am not just a spark of spirit. I am a servant of Krishna. And that's how the holy name can actually elevate even people who are caught in the Brahman realization to the complete understanding of the full spiritual realization. And then Param Vijayate. It is supremely victorious. Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So, Kirtana is chanting. Sankirtana is samyaka rupena. It means that which is done. The sun can mean two things. If it is taken to mean sangha, then it becomes kirtan that is done in association. But if that sun is referred to as samyaka, complete, then sankirtan means complete kirtan. That means complete absorption of one's being. And then what happens by this? Param Vijayate. Param Vijayate means it leads to the supreme victory. What is the supreme victory? The supreme victory is the victory over material existence, the victory over the cycle of birth and death. In this world, we may achieve stunning victories, but they are all temporary. Whatever we may achieve, that achievement is not going to stay forever. What to speak of forever? It is not going to stay for a very long time also. It stays for a few months, a few years. Say India won the World Cup 3-4 years ago, and Indians were, having the material version of ecstasy at that time. But then now, again another World Cup is going to come up, and now whether India will win or not, we can't say. And then there is so much anxiety, and if India doesn't win, there will be so much misery. So basically, at that time it was in one sense a great achievement, but then it's not permanent. Nothing is permanent. So the victory which we achieve, none of them is Param Vijayate. It is all temporary vijays. We may struggle, we may put our energy and we may achieve victory, but it is a small victory. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita that man has endeavored to rise himself to the moon, but man has not endeavored to raise his consciousness. If we just put in a fraction of the effort that we are putting here, we will gain so much more happiness. That's the essence of what Prabhupada is saying. So, the point is that we don't reject or condemn material efforts. As we live in the material world, we have our endeavors and we will have our challenges and we will have our successes and we can celebrate those successes also. But we should not get so caught up in the material victories that we forget that ultimately material existence is going to end in defeat. Parabhavastavad abodhajato yavanna jigyasad atmatattvam. If one does not inquire about atmatattva, Maharaj Shabdev says in the 5th canto, 5th chapter that parabhavastavad, ultimately one will be defeated. No matter what one achieves, everything will be lost at the time of death. But if we practice devotion, if we cultivate attraction to Krishna, that attraction to Krishna, or even the attraction to transcendence, even if it is not an attraction specifically to Krishna, even if you practice spiritual life in general, that attraction will stay forever with us. And in the next life, it's not that the baby instead of crying will be chanting Hare Krishna. No, there is a certain biological process that will take place. But once the child is exposed to devotion, the latent attraction will manifest so quickly. Purva abhyasena tenaiva riyate yavashopi saha. Purva abhyas, because of the previous practice, quickly, spontaneously one gets attracted. Avashopi saha, almost helplessly one is attracted to Krishna. So, recently I was in Calcutta, so there one Bengali Mataji, lady, not a devotee, she had come and she had almost like a 3-year-old child, and she was telling that She says, I want to see Jagannath. And she actually as 3-year-old child has never gone out of home also. But she said, oh, there is a ISKCON temple over here, I want to go there. And she recognized, oh, this is Gaura, this is Nitai, this is Jagannath, this is Baldev, this is Subhadra. So our devotees were amazed. How is a small 3-year-old child able to remember all these things? Now the parents are not devotees, not inclined towards devotion also. But she forced the children to come. Why? Because she said that she remembers her past life. And she said, I was a devotee in the past life and I want to see the Lord. And she was so happy, so spontaneously attracted. As soon as she came into the temple, she offered obeisances. Nobody taught her to do that. Her parents were not doing it. How? This is Purva Abhyasena Tenaiva Riyate Yavashopi Saha. So from the past, you will be attracted immediately. So that is of course not Param Vijayate, that is only a partial Vijayate. The Param Vijayate is so that we completely get out of material existence and return back to Krishna. So the chanting of the holy names offers us this supreme victory. It frees us from material existence, and that which ultimately spells defeat. No matter what we achieve in this world, death will spell defeat for it all. But if we become devoted to Krishna, then that is the supreme victory. It will take us beyond all miseries for a life of eternal love with Krishna. And that is the blessing of the holy name which it offers. So to summarize, I started by talking about how the holy name expands our consciousness. That means expands our conceptions of happiness and helps us to find happiness in Krishna. Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. Then Vidya Vadhu Jivanam. We discussed how knowledge actually often, especially knowledge in the philosophical sense, is life negating. But the knowledge of devotion is life affirming. A devotee feels more energized to serve Krishna because this activity is not just for temporary gain, it is for eternal gain. I'm going closer to Krishna by doing my activity. So that's how the devotion is the life of the bride of Vidya, of knowledge. Then Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. We discussed that beyond the ocean of material existence and beyond the coast of immortality is the ocean of devotion. The ocean of the glories of Krishna, and the devotee relishes that more and more by the holy name's grace. And we discuss how in natural things and even in technological things, a devotee can see ultimately Krishna's glory. So in that way, not only will we be able to access this ocean of Krishna's glories, but that ocean will also expand because we'll see Krishna's glories everywhere. And then Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam. So we discuss constant and complete nectar. So initially our experience of devotion may be like poison in the beginning, nectar at the end. But if you keep practicing bhakti, then the influence of the modes will subside, and then we'll have constant and complete nectar in our experience of devotion. And then Sarvatma Snapanam. We discuss all our conceptions of self get purified. So we don't reject our bodily identity, as Krishna calls Arjuna also by Kaunteya and Bharata. So we don't reject them, but we redirect the sense of honor coming from those identities to do honorable things in Krishna's service. So all our conceptions of self become purified by the chanting of the holy name. And ultimately, Param Vijayate. We discussed how everything in this world will end in defeat at the time of death. But devotion will conquer death. In the sense that even if the devotion is not full, it will continue on the next life and take us onwards towards Krishna. And if it is fully manifested, fully developed, then it will take us back to Krishna, and thereby we will get the supreme victory. Such is the glory of the holy name. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, Param Vijayate. Let that holy name be supremely victorious. So actually, when he is saying that, is he blessing the holy name? No, we are not going to bless the holy name. But it's actually reminding oneself. Param Vijayate means, this is the glory of the holy name, but let that holy name's glory manifest in my heart, and let the holy name become supremely victorious in my heart also. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.